You're good. But I saw it.
That's not your role, sir.
Give me my money.
The story kicks off with Chris Vaughn, a former Special Forces soldier, returning to his hometown, Kitsap County, Washington. While walking, he notices that the town's once thriving mill, once the main source of employment, has been shut down. As he reads the mill's closure notice, he is approached by the local sheriff, Stan Watkins, who recognizes Chris from his military days and offers him a lift home. Chris initially declines, but after some persuasion, he agrees to the ride. Upon reaching his house, Chris is warmly greeted by his sister Michelle. Soon after, his parents come out to welcome him too, expressing their joy at his return after many years. He's surprised to see how much his nephew Pete has grown during his absence. The next morning, Chris begins fixing the old wooden staircase at the front of the house. While he works, his high school friend Ray shows up and greets him. When Chris offers Ray a beer, Ray declines and proudly shares that he's been clean from drugs and alcohol for over a year. Ray then invites Chris to a football game with some of their old school friends, and Chris agrees to join. At the football field, Chris and Ray reunite with their former classmates. They're set to play against a team led by Jay Hamilton, another old friend of Chris and the heir to one of the wealthiest families in the county. Hamilton now runs the town's most successful casino. His teammates, including the casino's security enforcers, soon arrive. As the game begins, it becomes clear that Hamilton's team is playing aggressively, intentionally injuring players. Chris notices Pete nearby, hanging out with boys who are smoking marijuana. During the game, Hamilton's enforcer Booth deliberately injures Chris by damaging his knee, but Chris chooses to let it go. After the game, Hamilton invites Chris and the others to his casino. Later, Chris warns Pete to stay away from the bad crowd, but Pete brushes him off and rides off on his mini bike. That evening, Chris, Ray, and their friends head to the casino. They're surprised by the flashy atmosphere and scantily clad women entertaining guests. Chris is soon treated like a VIP, taken to a private booth where a stripper begins to perform for him. To his shock, the dancer is Denny, his high school sweetheart. She stops her routine upon recognizing him and closes the curtain. Chris is visibly disappointed to see her in this line of work. Back on the main casino floor, Chris sees Ray gambling and joins his older friend Smitty at a dice table. He quickly notices the dealer is cheating using weighted dice. When Chris confronts him, the dealer calls in security. A fight erupts between Chris and the bouncers. Initially, Chris holds his own but is eventually overpowered, tasered, and dragged to the basement. Booth, the head of security, takes Chris's military pendant and slashes his body with a blade. Believing him dead, the men dump Chris by the roadside. But Chris regains consciousness and manages to flag down a passing truck. He's taken to the hospital, where doctors manage to save his life and assure his family he'll recover. Back home, he's cared for by Pete and Ray, slowly regaining his strength. One day, while still healing, Chris is approached by Hamilton, who apologizes for what happened and offers him a job as the head of casino security. Chris declines, and though Hamilton urges him to reconsider, Chris stands firm. Hamilton then tries to offer money as compensation, but Chris refuses and warns that he plans to report the casino. Chris goes to Sheriff Watkins to file a report, but the sheriff tells him that an investigation already occurred and lacks sufficient evidence to charge the security team or shut the casino down. Watkins explains that since the mill closed, the casino has become the town's main income source, making it politically impossible to take action. Frustrated, Chris tells Watkins he will reveal the casino's crimes. Soon after, Chris returns from meeting Denny to find that Pete has overdosed on crystal meth. Chris questions Pete's friends, who reveal that the casino's security guards are the drug suppliers. Enraged, Chris retrieves his old shotgun and, despite his father's objections, heads to the casino. Instead of the gun, Chris enters the casino wielding a large wooden beam and begins destroying slot machines and furnishings. Security quickly responds, but Chris fends them off using the beam, severely injuring them. He reclaims his pendant from Booth before throwing the beam through a glass window, spotting Hamilton watching. As Chris tries to flee, police arrive and arrest him for assault and